Hey folks, it is me again, Mrs. Johnson with the Agro Wisdom channel. We're still talking about XL garden stuff because I'm still planning and I'm not done planning. So I'm taking you along for the ride once again. For those of you who don't know, I work at a hardware store, got seeds from said hardware store because it's September, was September, now it's October. And we sent the seeds back, but I got to take free seeds home. So now I am really gung ho to start my first garden in a couple years on family property, which is super cool because there hasn't been a garden there in several years. And we initially homesteaded the property. And so now I'm here and it's super amazing and super cool. But that means I actually have to like plan things and do things for that. So, talk about it. Um, we're going to talk about scheduling planting dates. We talked about this a little bit in some other videos, but I'm going to show you how Excel can be super handy for that and show you some Excel stuff. Um, First and foremost, I made a copy of this one. I actually went through and updated the names on these things because I was getting confused. You update the names, double click, and then it'll let you retype whatever you want. So I named this one Successions. This was my last video. Made one on planting dates, and I just copied it. Right there, mover copy. From a right click on the sheet itself. But for planting dates, I have so much information on here that I do not need, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of it. So, if I'm just talking specifically about dates, I don't need any of this stuff about the packs that I have or the seeds or the total seeds or how many plants I actually want. I don't need to know if it's enough seeds. I need to know how many successions I'm planting because that's going to tell me how many dates I need. So I'm going to highlight all those, right click, delete. And then see all the stuff that was like went from numbers to references, seeds per succession. If I'm strictly talking about dates in this, I do not need that. I don't need to know the square inches. I don't need to know the square footage of anything because I'm just talking about dates. When do I want to put things in the ground? So I can delete it. Nice thing about making several pages is it makes things really easy to see, as you just saw. I went through and added dates for things that I would need because I have this is still sorted from least to most successions. So I have 4 successions at the most. I have 4 rows of dates in different colors. And then before I jumped on recording, I uploaded my last frost date and my first frost date from the Farmer's Almanac. Now, the Farmer's Almanac it's not open anymore. Okay. Anyway, first almanac or Farmer's Almanac uses a 30% chance of frosting and does not take into consideration microclimates. And it's been long enough since I've been in this microclimate where my homestead is specifically, and I haven't gardened in it in like almost a decade because I was like a young child at that point. So I was not paying attention. So I'm kind of starting from scratch on this whole first last frost date for the season here. Um, like some of you are. So, 30% chance of frosting basically means that this June 1st date, um, there is past that, there's a 30% chance that it's going to frost um, into the rest of June and July, August. And that first frost date basically means that anything before that September 16th date has a 30% chance of frosting, anything before that. So from June 6th all the way to September 16th, I have a 30% chance of frosting, according to like the last 30 years of weather research um, from the Farmer's Almanac. And that's where I pulled that information. Um, and then I added just a section, a column called frost protection for the things that I knew I was going to need frost protection on. Why? Because that's going to come into play with my first and last frost dates. Because where I live has a 30%, no, has a 100, what is it, like 110 days between these two dates. And that's a really short growing season. So um, if you look at my days to harvest, for a lot of these, I am pushing it. Okay. That 110 days, most people in my town don't even, they don't even get, like, they're trying to get things with 50 days on them because we have really big diurnal fluctuations, basically meaning it gets really hot in the day and really cold at night in the summertime. And so it frosts a lot. And the long, like, the more outside of these dates you get, the worse it is. So anyway, let's talk about it. So I need to know the days of germination, days of harvest, and successions. And that's all I have left, aside from first, last frost date, frost protection. And if I start with this, we'll only do a few and then I'll do the rest by myself. But if I start with the basil, my last frost date is uh, June 6th or June 1st. And so I'm going to think about, now I've grown basil before. I know that basil is a cut and come again product, basically meaning I can grow one plant and harvest it all year round, or basically harvest it until it dies or gets old enough that it doesn't taste good anymore, and which doesn't often happen with basil. Often basil is, as long as it doesn't go to flower, a pretty good um, producer for longer periods of time. And I know that I'm gonna try and pair that basil harvest up with like my tomato harvests. And so around here, the earliest we can get tomato harvests is usually like mid-July-ish. So so I only have one succession, so I can block all of these out. I don't need those because I have one succession. Now, if I'm gonna shoot for August or July 15th-ish, right? I can type that in here. Why is it different? Why no, why is it different? Why is it different? I'm changing the format. That also, this is how you change the format of the dates and numbers in Excel, is that little button right there. So if I'm shooting for the 15th of July, um, I can do some Excel functions and highlight my harvest date and then subtract my days to harvest. Okay, so I can plant on at latest uh June 5th. Now, that's a good ballpark, but I'm actually going to try and start it in April. So if I move this date back to July 15th or June 15th, I started in May. And I kind of don't want to start plants in May because end of the summer, next summer, I'm actually going to Oregon for grad school. So if I push this date back to the 1st, I start planting in April. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. Now, that transplant section, I get to decide whether or not I get to transplant it. And because I'm starting it in April, I think I want to, I think I'm going to transplant it just because it's going to be a little easier. And so, we'll do 4 weeks out from that planting date. 4 weeks is 28 days. And so there you go. I transplant in May, right? So that looks good. Now corn. Let's talk about corn. How many successions are we doing? We're doing one succession. We can block out the rest of those. Corn takes 70 days, and I will eat corn a lot. Now, corn is not one of those cut and come again products. And so I'm going, and considering that I won't be here for like, definitely won't be here in August, might be here in July. And I'm planting a lot of corn. I want to make sure it's done by July, but I don't want to be harvesting the same day as everything else. So if I go, if we go a week out from, if I go a week out from my basil date, then I can take this date, subtract my days to harvest. I'm starting that at the end of March. So that's nice, right? Because my days to harvest are drastically different. So I'm not planting things all at the same time. And I work full time at a hardware store. So I kind of don't want to work super. I don't want to fill my weekends with crazy events. And we'll transplant because this is the end of March, and March, where I'm from, sometimes gets snow. I'm gonna transplant it the end of April. So we'll go the 21st. We'll estimate for the 21st. Now, all these end dates are wrong. It says 2025, but it's actually 26. I will change that later, right? So now you kind of get the picture of kind of where my thinking lies on that. We're gonna do one more, which is this bottom one for carrots. Excuse me. Just a second. I have to take medication. Hold on. Okay. Carrots. Let's talk about it. Um, I have 4 successions, so I'm gonna need all 4 rows. And days to harvest 75. Now I want to start. When do I want to start harvesting? I kind of want to start harvesting like May 1st. Right. And so if I start harvesting May 1st for my planting date, I subtract 75 days from May 1st, I start planting in April. Okay, cool. Now I'm not transplanting carrots because they're awful to transplant. So I'm going to actually change this frost protection to yes, because I'm starting in April, and April is cold. Um, so then if I start on May 1st, we'll give and I leave in probably July. We'll do another. Now I'm doing 25 carrots per. And in the summertime, I eat carrots with like ranch and like with my lunches. Probably not going to do a lot of soups. Um, and I'm not going to take a bunch of carrots to Oregon, which is why I'm doing the succession planting. Um, so my next date, we'll put it 2 week and a half-ish out from that first date, just so then I have like a week and a half to harvest the first succession, week and a half to harvest the next succession. So that's like the 12th of May. And I just do the same thing. As long as I quit. Right. So then my second plant date, May 12th minus 75. 26th of September. Right. And this is where I'm kind of talking about the overlap. So you'll see that uh in my last video, I talked about the square footage overlap. I have like 2,000 feet of square footage accurately, or 200 square feet of overlap of other things that I should put in my garden. And so, 2 weeks, right? By the time this is started and pulled out of the ground, um, I want to keep that in mind, right? When does this start? Because I'm doing several harvests, I have to keep in mind how much square footage I'm using, which is part of the reason why I'm going through and making dates, so then I can adjust the desired numbers that I want accordingly once I figure out how much space I actually need. Let's see. After May 12th, we'll do another week and a half out for that third succession because there's 4 total. May 12th plus like 10-ish. We'll do the 24th. And then May 24th minus 75. It's March. So I'm planting in March now. Now, this is if we do another week and a half, right? If this is Gonna keep in mind if I do another week and a half, I'll be harvesting at the same time as all this. Um, ish. And so I'll probably go right in between those dates and do like the 3rd of June, just so then I have some time to not come home from work and be exhausted and then have to go out in the garden. Um, which is great because then all this stuff gets planted in March. Hold on. I have to change the formatting. Because one, it's going to bother me, and two, I cannot accurately conceptualize the numbers in my brain until I fix it. When I'm comparing, because fun fact, I don't see numbers or pictures in my head, so that's fun. Let's see. There we go. Right. So, right, this now that I've kind of filled in some things, I'm gonna compare the dates and go, is there a day that I'm super, duper, duper busy? Not really, right? It looks like May is a busy time of year because I'm harvesting carrots throughout May. It also looks like I'm gonna be transplanting. Um, but May around here, May, June, July, August, and some of September is often busy times of year here. And so I'm kind of expecting that. But so far, so good. It doesn't look like I'm gonna overload myself. Um, and so hopefully I'll call this good for the video. And I will give you that to think about, conceptualize all the things. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a great day. All right. Bye.